city a lot of times is that these great developments come in and they move people out. People that I've heard a lot of people say that are under, they don't make a lot of money. What do you do with the people? Because they're still going to exist on top of all these wonderful things that we want to do.
Yeah.
So my concern is the people.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Need to be answered. Okay, like you said, we're blended. It's more diversified now. But in a lot of the areas that you're talking about, especially along that corridor, I mean, I've seen the corridor from North and Greenmount up to about 27th Street, which is where I lived with my parents. I've seen that go through drastic changes. And like I said, it's just now that there's some improvements coming, but I don't want us to lose sight of the people. And predominantly African American people. I don't want us to lose sight of who we are and our place in all of this, because we all have to live together. So I don't want to see us push anybody away because of what we want to bring through and make it happen. Let's come together and make it happen. We have to. It's 2015.
Well, I could not agree more personally, and I actually have nothing myself to contribute more than that because you've said it so eloquently. I would just open up to the panelists if you have any specific responses about it.
I think, and you're absolutely right, what's happened in East Baltimore is not something we want to replicate anywhere in the city, right?
No, I'm not talking about just recently.
No,
I'm talking about what has happened.
I want to go over decades. But the strategy that I think we've looked at is really addressing down the court of the sun in Greenmount, a lot of vacancies, almost no existing residential that would be part of a assembly program or a relocation program. It's really focused on adding to it as opposed to subtracting from what's already there. So I hear you, and I think working with, you've got strong community organizations. Frankly, without the strong community organizations that have been here for decades, we wouldn't have Station North here. We wouldn't have all the strength that's here. I mean, that didn't happen because of the city or because of any big developer. It happened because of the neighborhoods and the people in those neighborhoods. I think we have immense respect for that. And I don't know how we can ease your mind, any of us here, other than once this program starts to move forward, being those who are actually implementing it, being a constant presence in the community because it's coming from the community.
Well, like I said, I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I don't know if you all have maybe done this in other areas and what you have all done in other areas in terms of going in and doing something different. And again, it may be beyond the scope of this. It may be another conversation with another group of people. But I just think that it's something that needs to be addressed. And as far as residents living on the main corridors, there being a lot of residential property, there are people living there. Now, they may not own it, but then when you go back into the communities that have to come out, they're changing. The communities are changing, and you still have a lot of African American people in those communities. And like I said, I'm concerned with strengthening the people. I see you bringing in the makers. Kids are great makers, but they don't know it. But how many of the kids in the community right now are getting access to being makers? How many of them know that they're already makers? So maybe that's an educational thing that has to be talked to. And I don't know if the body of people that are sitting here that could reach out and say, hey, look, yeah, we're going to do this, but I think maybe one additional piece, a couple additional pieces. Economically, people need to know how to address the banks. They need to know what a bank is. Some of them don't. I mean, like I said, there might be beyond here, and my concern is the people. My people, our people.
And if I could just add, I'll just say this planning process, this discussion is absolutely a part of a bigger process of community building, of capacity building, of building up some great neighborhoods here, right? And we've been a part of that process. We're going to keep you a part of that process, and we are going to commit to making sure that whatever comes of this part of that bigger whole is true to what we want and y'all want as community members. So that means, you know, we're still running the 29th Street Community Center, making sure that we've got great youth programs, great adult programs there, right? We've got full-time organizers in Harwood, in Barkley, hopefully in Greenmount West soon, making sure that people are engaged in this process, making sure that people have those other economic opportunities as well. So I think that's going to be a conversation we're going to have to continue to have. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the follow-up from this process, how we bring this back into the neighborhoods over the next few months. And maybe I'll let Brad talk about your timeline.
First of all, it's not being driven by anybody on this side of the room. It's the people on this side of the room that are driving the timeline. We have tried to present small, inexpensive, quick changes that can be made, right? Your pedestrian crosswalks, things that can be done overnight, and then things which are much bigger and longer, maybe relocate these body shops to over here into the industrial zone, freeing up land for mixed-income housing. Those projects take a long time and a lot more work. How quickly all of that goes is entirely a function of the desires and the interests of the local neighborhoods, their desire for change, their ability to push that agenda at at a higher level, maintain the attention and the interest of decision makers, and to make it happen. And so we would urge you to be as quick as possible in getting what you want and need, and very slow in getting things you don't.
Real quickly, from our standpoint, from the process that we're going through, we will leave here, we will take the presentation, we will post it on our website, we will communicate that to everybody so you'll have an opportunity to review this in more detail. We are responsible for providing a report, which is much more extensive than what you see here. It takes into account really the complete 2 days and a lot of other thinking and your questions and the answers that we're getting today. We anticipate we're going to have a draft of that to the panelists within the next month and a half. And then after that, we review it, we perfect it, we finalize it, we produce hard copies of it, we produce electronic copies of it. We'll have those posted on the website. We'll be able to provide that to you as well as hard copies should you need them. And then Brad, his additional responsibility as the chair of this technical systems panel is to follow up with our sponsor, the Baltimore Development Corporation, every 6 months. Okay, here are the recommendations we had. What are you doing about it? Because what we don't want to do is we don't want this to become stale. So that's our process.
And I guess that leads into what Ira was talking about. There's going to be an ongoing process of community engagement led by Greater Homewood. Ira will be setting up and attending community meetings. I've volunteered to attend myself just to be a participant, be visible, be available, and we'll be talking about this. Meanwhile, the whole thing is being filmed. We're going to chop this up into little video bites, put it on the web, make links available so that people who want to see and weren't here, there's a permanent record of what happened. So we very much want this to be an ongoing process. And meanwhile, Links is just kicking off. So the city of Baltimore is building its own process now for interagency cooperation to make this happen. Yeah, so, right. Yes, ma'am.
May I make a suggestion to community leaders? Since the 1930s, there have been trade tracks, one of the things they offer is construction, building trades, carpentry, plumbing and heating. Those trade tracks were there for kids in grades 9 and 12, and there is no book. They only ever tell the kids that want to work with their hands second thing is that, if they give a consideration to those types of companies that are hiring these young people and they get better labor because they're supervised. Some of these businesses also in some states get tax credits to hire those students. And then when you have the thing, these little developments rebuilt, you're going to have, what if you build 5 little, 2-bedroom homes, 2-story, 2-bedroom homes, and you can't sell one of them? You might have a kid that is out of high school, graduates, that he's worked on the area, he's gotten to know a little, and he's a better bet for a mortgage. But you have to lay the foundation for that, and instead of just talking about community leadership, get down to the nuts and bolts and the economics of seeing to it that some of the kids in Bougainville or these other trade programs are an integral part of these projects, then it's not just a bunch of big corporations bidding on the city contracts.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
I feel like I could answer that. Legally, I'm the president of the Greenmount West Community Association.
Speak up.
We do have a development committee, so any development that happens in the neighborhood, we really try to push for that development to give back to the neighborhood and also hire locally. There's also legislation that Delegate Cray is putting forth for the trades. He's an electrician, and it didn't pass this year, but he's going to continue to push for
Do
it.
you mind if I ask why it didn't pass?
Because what he's asking for is he's asking for a lot. He's asking for a paid stipend. He's asking for housing for these trades while you're in the training. A lot of places don't offer stuff like that. So it's very expensive. They're going to have to figure out how to sort of pay for it. But he's going to modify it and put it forward again.
Baltimore City has at least 4 trade schools. And I'm
We have
aware,
a trade
we have
school.
trade schools. And I'm speaking from a teacher standpoint. Teaching Cisco IT networking in Baltimore City Public Schools. Our students can come out with the certification that they need to go right into a job. They can get the training in the classroom, not only the training in the classroom, but just as she's proposing or saying, we can then, reach out to these companies that want to come in and do this and say, hey, look, we got great talent here. I'm a product of great talent. I know it exists, and we can do this, but you got to get the right people at the end.
Sorry.
I just wanted to, I'm sure there's a lot of other topics that we want to talk about. I just want to acknowledge what you're saying as being so important, that it is about the people, okay? And this study, really, you could think of it as part 1, and there's another part that wasn't part of the scope of our study, but is not separate either. I mean, you can't really separate the health of communities and people, right, from the actual built environment. So I want to acknowledge that we could provide the places for the services to happen, but what you're talking about is public safety, public health, jobs, education. These are what will help the neighborhood succeed. And I think that we have a great partner, Greater Homewood, and Greenmount West, and having them on board to support all of you and to reach out to the city is huge. And so I suggest you keep saying what you're saying and get the message out and work towards that portion of a study as well.
I have a question. This is directed to the traffic engineer. I hear you say nothing about the traffic lights. Are we going to change them coming down the Greenmount College?
Are we going to change the operation, or are we going to
check traffic lights, just like a pole light, that type of one stands on the corner.
You mean you don't like the 40-year-old poles? We talk about short-term changes and trying to adapt the existing equipment to better have traffic flow with the limited type of equipment they have. Rebuilding the signal, putting in new equipment, modern equipment is about $250,000 per intersection. So it's not something, there's 10 intersections along this corridor. So it's going to be more of a long range situation, but we're going to try to maximize, suggesting you maximize what you can do with the existing equipment, but make steps to try to work your way down the corridor and try to improve the equipment because it's changed significantly in the last few years.
Other comments and questions? Yes, in the back.
Follow-up question about traffic lights, traffic signals. North of North Avenue, you've got old-fashioned traffic signals, but down here south of North Avenue, we don't have any at all. It's got to be an integral part of traffic calming. And when I heard somebody say there need to be pedestrian crosswalks, I think, well, that's a great idea, but they're not going to stop the crosswalks without a light. So we really do need a couple of lights south of North Avenue. Play their script.
Traffic lights are a difficult issue for us traffic engineers that have to follow rules. There's certain federal standards that say when you can put a light in and when you can't. And if you put in an unwarranted light, you're liable for the accidents that occur. At a traffic light, there's more accidents occur at a traffic light than an unsignalized intersection. About 40% of accidents. Now the accident types change. They change from angle accidents at an unsignalized intersection to side swipes and rear ends at signalized intersections. So there's warrants for pedestrian signals. You have to have, I believe the number is 200 pedestrians per hour for 8 hours in a day to cross the street to get a traffic light specifically for pedestrian activity. To get a traffic light for vehicle activity, I'll know these numbers because I'm an engineer. It's 53 left turn, or it's 105 left turns per hour off the side road for 8 hours a day. We have none of that, and actually, to tell you the truth, I think a lot of the signals up the corridor don't even meet the warrants.
Is that all order statewide?
It's federal government. That's federal METC. It's called the Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and that's why traffic lights signs are certain colors because they all are uniform throughout the country. So you have to follow that. If you don't follow that,
can I have one point just from my own perspective, doing a lot of different development? I think I've heard a lot about the speed of the traffic, right, as opposed to traffic. So one of the suggestions I think Ken put up was taking it from a two-lane road to a one-lane road with parking. As a developer, I find that to be much, much more effective than putting a light in. I've done that. If you can think about some of your other roads, the parallel roads to Greenmount, then you can see as you move over to these other roads that just a one lane is a much more effective way of calming it and having people aware. Right?
You develop there before you have parking there. Nothing parking for there.
I would agree with that. That's true. I mean, part of that whole thing is the timing and what we heard earlier as it relates to some of the timelines that transportation improvements can happen. Leon expressed that he thought that they should move quicker. So I think we're going to, part of that may or may not be how we put all that together towards our school.
Sir.
On this committee, how many committee members are part of it?
Well, so this team is an outside.
A pretty condensed time frame, but we worked really hard to make sure that as much community input as possible got to them beforehand, and also what I'll transition to talking about now is how we're going to ensure that we keep getting some community input as we start figuring out what makes the most sense here and how we're going to implement some of these things, right? So, like we said, we videotaped this. One of the most important things for me is I want to get this out both on as many different sites as we can get, the ULI site, the Greater Homewood site, whatever BDC sites maybe we can get it on, and also out to each of you community members, we can get it on Nextdoor, maybe we can get it on your Facebook pages. We also want to pretty quickly hold individual community meetings in each of the neighborhoods along the corridor here, so Harwood, Barclay, Midway, Greenmount West, Johnston Square, to really go over more in-depth your area of the corridor and some of the recommendations here. And so we'll be in touch immediately to figure out, to plan those dates and to again do outreach and make sure community are at those sessions as well.
So in other words, there's still room for more input from.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. Yes.
You don't agree with everything I
Transportation.
Yeah, so there's, if I could just say one last thing. So as Greater Homewood, we're committed to two different really important parts of this process. One is making sure we have as many more rooms for community input as possible, and that's taken seriously. And two, that we can prod our lovely partners over at the city, the mayor's office, planning, housing, DOT, to make sure that these recommendations are implemented, right? To make committed to. And if you ever feel like you're not getting enough community input, you come find me and you, I don't know, lecture me for a while, and we'll make sure to change that. Because that's the most important part of this process for all of us. So.
And keep us motivated to come to the meeting.
Absolutely. Haven't you all got a call from John then? That's why I'm here, right? Friendly persistence.
Real quickly, from the Urban Land Institute standpoint, as I said, we will produce a report which will ultimately be disseminated to everybody. The reason why this is a 2-day process for us is so that we purposely do not get down into the really granular level of this discussion, so that we stay at the 20,000 foot level and identify specific things that we believe are important. A lot of the recommendations that are going to be in the report are going to be kind of formulated after this discussion. Things like, hey, we need a detailed market study. Okay, we need a detailed traffic study to understand really where the movements are and what's happening. We need to talk with MTA to understand this, that, and the other thing. Those are going to be in the report. And those are going to be very specific follow-ups. We did this at Bel Air Road. And one of the things that we said was we needed a really detailed market analysis. That was one of the recommendations of the report. That recommendation was followed. The city commission, actually it was a consortium of people commissioned a market study. We had that produced, and that provided invaluable education for people understanding how much money was in that corridor that was being spent outside that corridor, which was then put out to the retail. Those are the kinds of things we do. We stay at that 20,000 foot level, so I'll make sure everybody understood that.
I just want to say real quick, Leon Pinkett from the Mayor's Office again. I just want to reiterate the fact that this is the beginning of a hopefully growing process where, and we saw one of the early steps bringing the expertise of ULI on to kind of give us some direction. But there have been individuals from each of the city agencies that are going to be tasked to be responsible specifically for seeing through the recommendations that are coming forth from this. Not to put her on the spot, but the lead for this particular area is Kate Edwards from the planning department. Kate, if you can. And so she will be a lead, and there'll be different leads in different communities. But because of her knowledge of the community, the work that she's already done, she won't be doing it alone. The city agencies will be working in collaboration with her to address the specific recommendations, and it'll be an ongoing conversation. We don't see this as just being the end of the dialogue, but the beginning of the dialogue, and it will continue on as we, and hopefully, the city's goal is to keep you motivated and coming because you're going to see stuff getting done. Because I know you're not going to want to keep coming. At some point, you're going to say, "All right, I'm not coming to another meeting because nothing's getting done." And hopefully, the motivation will be as you see some of these recommendations getting ticked off, and you will keep us accountable. That okay, what's happening? What's happening? You said this was going to happen in 6 months. You said this was going to happen in 12 months. And so this is just providing us the beginning of a roadmap so that we can address, some of the issues related to Greenmount.
Question. We appreciate the fact that we're kind of the guinea pigs in that. The mayor came out yesterday and said, "You all are the first."
The prototype, not the guinea pig.
Well, okay, prototype. But the idea is we understand that process and that it's not perfect yet. And we're pleased that we are the first community to be spearheading this. My question is, when are the other communities going to be following up? Are there going to be conflicts in terms of resources that the city has to bear if you're trying to juggle 4 different study areas at one time? I'm particularly concerned about North Avenue as being a study area, and what impact that may have on this, because they intersect.
Right. So the initial 5 study areas, obviously of Greenmount Avenue, East North Avenue from Greenmount to Gay, Liberty Heights corridor from the county line to Druid Park Lake Drive, the Penn North area, Pennsylvania Avenue, and then also a portion of North Avenue, and then a section of Central Avenue in Jonestown. And so I wouldn't be concerned about the stretching of city resources. They are city personnel that are staffed to respond to those particular areas even now. And so it's more getting the city to collaborate more, to talk to, collaborate as far as resources, collaborate as far as strategy in those particular areas. So our focus in those other 4 areas is not going to diminish the resources and focus that we have on this. Those areas have already, funds have already been allocated to do similar work or studies in those areas as well, to guide the work in there. So it's not going to take away from our focus. Matter of fact, things like this will sharpen our focus on Greenmount. I think right now that some might say that we might be a little bit distracted, but now we have a clear, we're trying to devise a clear roadmap so we know exactly how we can best serve Greenmount.
Just kind of follow to that. I was just kind of fitting into the budget cycle, and is it even too early to think that how it connects?
Well, the hope is that as these recommendations come to life, that not only in the individual agencies, but also in the city's capital improvement plan, that there will be, it will reflect, some of the recommendations, so we can slowly add some of these things to the budget and be really strategic about where we're allocating funds. Right.
All right. Any further questions? Anything else we can do? You've been very patient. Thank you very much, everyone.